you're going to boycott as well. And the most alarmed group, of course, was the strong American Jewish community, because they were finding out, what was going on in Germany in terms of anti-Semitism. Now, the U.S. athletes, and this is kind of interesting, especially the black track stars, really wanted to go, in spite of the segregation in our own country and the limitations on, on their freedoms. The black athletes that were the key members of our track and field team, they wanted to go and defeat the Germans, along with the American Olympic Committee, the International Committee. All of these people wanted to have the games go forward. And so the Olympic leaders' philosophy was really that the Olympics should be above politics. That this isn't something that should interfere with the Olympic Games. Now, one American U.S. Member of the International Olympic Committee, a Southerner named Ernest Yankee, he supported the boycott. He had heard that the Germans were not allowing Jewish athletes to try out for the team, and he felt like that was not consistent with the Olympic ideal. And so he was really a loud voice in trying to promote the boycott. Now, the American president, the president of the American Olympic Committee, was a guy named Avery Brundage. He was a former Olympic athlete. He participated in the Olympics in 1912, and two of his teammates were General, who was George Patton, who would become General George Patton, and then also Jim Thorpe was the hero of the 1912 Olympics. So Brundage was a wealthy businessman. He had connections. He was a close friend with Carl DM, and he was friends with many of the German Olympic leaders. Here's Theodore Levald in this picture. And so Brundage volunteered to go on a fact-finding trip to find out if, in fact, the Germans were discriminating against the Jewish athletes. So the problem is his fact-finding trip, mainly he was fed facts from his friends in Germany. So when he came back, he was able to report, oh no, the German athletes were invited to participate. They either didn't want to be on the team, or they weren't good enough to be on the team. And so he did a strong sell job to say, let's go ahead with the Olympics in Berlin. Things looked pretty good, but wait a minute, not so fast. In 1935, we had the Nuremberg Laws, which legalized anti-Semitism. And anybody who was not a pure Aryan was categorized either as a Mischling, that is, you had some kind of Jewish heritage in your family, or you were fully Jewish, which meant that you were no longer a German citizen. Theodore Levald came from a wealthy Jewish heritage, and he was demoted from his position as president of the German Olympic Committee. Now, here's Levald, a picture with Carl DM. Of course, they were the dynamic duo. Here's Brundage with Levald and the mayor of Berlin. With this demotion, the International Olympic Committee was not happy. The International Sporting Committee was really offended as well, because Levald was respected and he was loved, and that brought back talk about the boycott. The threat was significant enough that Levald was reinstated as president of the German Olympic Committee, but they put a middleman in between above Levald, so that he didn't have the same authority as previously. In addition, the International Olympic Committee now pressured the Germans to have a Jewish athlete on their team. They said, look, this can solve our problem. You need to have a Jewish athlete on your team. The Germans had a world-class high jumper, but she was fully Jewish, so she was not even a German citizen anymore. So they came upon a fencer named Helene Mayer. In 1928, she won the gold medal. And if you look at Helene Mayer, Her mother was Aryan. Her father was a Jewish physician. I mean, she looks like she could be the poster child for Aryan women. She was in, after the 32 Olympics, she stayed in California. She was a college student. She was teaching German over there as well. But she was invited to come back and be in the be on the Olympic team. And so she did. She won the silver medal in 1936. Here she is on the victory stand, being the good German, showing her Nazi salute. When she was asked later about this, she came back to the United States, and she said she was trying to play the role and protect her family. It's ironic that the 3 medal winners in women fencing that year were all 3 of them were non-Aryans. So it looks like we finally solved our problem here. The summer games are going to be held. And then 3 events occurred which really added momentum, assisted the Germans in moving toward hosting the Olympic Games. And the first prelude, the first event, were the Winter Games. They were held in 2 gorgeous resort towns in Bavaria, Garmisch and Partenkirchen. From here on, I will refer to those towns as Gapa. It's a lot easier to say. But this was a dress rehearsal for the Germans. They could show off their administrative skills. Besides that, look at this gorgeous location. Can you imagine? This is a fairy tale. Could anything go wrong? Well, guess what? Diem and Laval knew that Gapa was a hotbed for anti-Semitism. And so when the new president of the International Olympic Committee, Henri Ballet-Latour from Belgium, he followed de Coubertin. He came over on an inspection tour of the Winter Olympic site, and he wasn't happy with what he saw. Anti-Semitic road signs, anti-Semitic signs on various businesses, and he was appalled. He was very angry, and he immediately called a meeting with Hitler. And here they are getting together, and he said, look, if you want to host these Olympic Games, you're going to have to do something about the anti-Semitic signs. And Hitler said he would. He promised, and he did. He followed up. Whatever he said at this point, people did. And so they were able to not only pull the signs down in Gapa, but also in Berlin as well. So we had the Olympic Games, and it was a success for the Germans. They showed that they could do a good job running the Olympics. They also impressed people with their brand new ski jump and their 10,000 seat skating rink. The 2 stars of the Winter Games were Adolf Hitler. Here he is arriving in Gapa. Of course, people coming out to greet the Führer. The other one was Norway's Queen of the Ice, Sonja Henie, and she again won Olympic gold. Now, one of the interesting stories to me, a side story with the Winter Olympics, is about a guy named Rudi Ball. He was the best ice hockey player in Germany. In 1932, he was their star and captain of the team. He had immigrated to Switzerland and wasn't invited to be on the team. Well, when the best players on the German ice hockey team found out Rudi Ball wasn't going to be on the team, they started to boycott. And so the Germans were forced to invite Rudi Ball back. He said that he would, but he was shrewd. He said, I'll play on the team, but he negotiated immigration for his family. And so he was able to get them out of Germany. Unfortunately, Rudi was hurt fairly early in the Olympic Games, and the Germans did not win a medal in the 36 Winter Olympics. Now, the second prelude to the Summer Games was the invasion of the Rhineland. See this area here? This area was formerly German land, but in the 1919 Versailles Treaty, which the Germans hated, this area, this land was taken away from Germany. It was to serve as a buffer. It was to be a demilitarized zone between France and Belgium and Holland in Germany, a protective space. Well, Hitler's advisors and generals, they advised him that maybe it wasn't a great idea to make this move, but Hitler was very impatient, and he sent the soldiers in, and they took over the Rhineland. And his attitude was, he who dares nothing wins nothing, and nobody did anything. The only result from France and England were a couple diplomatic letters complaining, but his successful invasion of the Rhineland really emboldened Hitler and made him even more of a hero to his people. The third event was an athletic event that really had nothing to do with the Olympics. It was a boxing match between a former heavyweight champion, German named Max Schmeling, and an up-and-coming undefeated African-American boxer named Joe Louis. And the fight was scheduled for Yankee Stadium on June 19th, 1936. Schmeling was seen as kind of a has-been. He was trying to bring his career back. Joe Louis was heavily favored. All the money was on Louis, and Schmeling shocked the world. He knocked Louis out in that fight, and of course returned to Germany as a hero. But the message that was the important one here was to the German people. They were very much aware of the strength of the American track and field team, particularly the black athletes. And this victory by Schmeling was a message to them to say, hey, we don't need to fear these black athletes. Look what Max Schmeling did on this boxing match. I'm sure you're aware that a couple years later, Joe Louis knocked Schmeling out in a return bout. So finally, we get to the Summer Games in Berlin, August 1st, 1936. This was a grand coming out party for the new Nazi regime. The day began at noon with Hitler at the Royal Palace hosting the International Olympic Committee for lunch and other dignitaries as well. The stadium was opened at 1 o'clock. So when the motorcade through Berlin, bringing Hitler and the entourage over, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the stadium was packed. And so when Hitler arrived with the trumpets blaring, he was able to receive a hero's welcome, a standing ovation. And then as he walked across the stadium, as the crowd is watching, a 5-year-old girl comes running across the field to greet him with a Nazi salute and a bouquet of flowers. And of course, the crowd was in awe. Well, if you notice this gentleman right here, that's Carl Diem. This young lady, Gudrun, that was his 5-year-old daughter. Diem did not miss a trick. He was a shrewd planner in the Olympic Games. So when Hitler gets to his box, his honor box over here, the Olympic bell starts to ring, and in comes the competing athletes by nation. The Greeks first, and then the other countries come in alphabetically. Now, the crowd went wild as many of the athletes from different countries used what they were taught, the Olympic salute, but it looked exactly like the Nazi salute. And so after all the athletes came through, then it was up to Hitler to step up to the microphone and to recite a short opening of the game speech. And then things kind of got quiet. Oh, let me say something about the salute. Here's a statue of the Olympic salute. The reason that the Olympic salute, and here's the German team giving, and obviously giving the Nazi salute. The reason these things look so much the same is because they were copies of the Roman army salutes. They're using a similar salute. So the Olympic salute, I think it went out of favor after World War II. You haven't seen that used since then. But while after Hitler gave his opening speech, opening the game, the crowd got quiet. Across Berlin, here comes the Olympic torch. right on time, you know, so that it could come in at the end of Hitler's speech. This Olympic torch relay was another Carl Diem idea, being the classical Greek historian. He went back, he wanted to find any way he could connect the modern games in Germany, the Nazi regime being the new Greeks. And so he went back to Olympia. They started the Olympic torch in Greece. They had 3,000 different runners running all the way across Europe with this Olympic torch, so that again it would arrive on the scene at the right hour. And here they are running across Berlin. You can see they've entered the historic Brandenburg Gate. So the stadium is quiet, and then all of a sudden you see this blonde, white-clad, kind of the Aryan version of the Greek god, a young man, 29-year-old engineer, Fritz Schilgen, a former runner, but not in the Olympics now. And so he was the last man. He was selected. You know, he was the perfect Aryan. And here he comes into the stadium. He runs across the stadium with the torch, gets to the other side, raises the torch. Everybody is silent and in awe. He reaches into the cauldron, and then the Olympic cauldron flame appears, and that flame will continue during the games for the next 16 days, and has, you know, it becomes a new Olympic tradition. Now we go back down to the field where one of the representatives of the host nation, in this case, Rudolf Ismayer, who was a weightlifter, he has one hand on the host country flag, and he recites the Olympic oath that had been written by Pierre de Coubertin. So he's representing all the athletes. In the name of all competitors, I promise we shall take part in these Olympic Games, respecting and abiding by the rules that govern them. And here's the part I love the most. This is true to Coubertin: in the true spirit of sportsmanship, for the glory of sport and for the honor of the teams. Now, after the Olympic oath, then the Hallelujah chorus comes on, and the athletes march out of the stadium, ending the opening day festivities. So the excitement is already there. Now we're ready for the opening day, August 2nd. Finally, the athletics are to begin. The stadium seats 105,000. There are 110,000 people there. One of the exciting things is for them is the 100-meter men's trials. So they're going to have a chance to see Jesse Owens, who is advertised as the fastest human in the world during that first day. But some other things happened also that were very important to the Germans. The first Olympic gold medal winner was in the women's javelin. Tilly Fleischer, the German, won that gold medal. Then soon after that, a German policeman, Hans Volke, won the shot put. Well, Hitler was so excited about this that he invited the three javelin throwers, he invited the shot putters, three Finns were the medalists in the 10,000 meter run. He invited them up to the box so he could personally congratulate them. And as the day wore on, however, the last event was the high jump. And in the high jump, when the last German competitor was eliminated, the only three people left were three Americans. Two of them were African Americans. That was at that point, Hitler left the stadium. So when the German college student won the gold medal in the high jump, And another African-American teammate of Jesse Owens won the silver medal. The third medal was also won by American. They looked up at the honorary box expecting to be congratulated, and Hitler was gone. And so these three high jumpers were snubbed by Hitler, and that started kind of a media firestorm the next day. Jesse Owens, on the second day of the competition, August 3rd, won the gold medal in the 100 meters, which showed that he was the fastest human, the fastest male on the earth. But when he wasn't invited up to Hitler's box, then the media wrote about the fact that he had been snubbed. In fact, the snubbing took place the night before. The three high jumpers, when they were overlooked, and the Olympic president of the International Olympic president, Latour, contacted Hitler right away and said, look, as the host, I don't mind that you congratulate the Olympic winners. That's fine, but you either congratulate all of them or congratulate none of them. And at that point, Hitler decided not to. Now, whether it was specifically because he didn't want to congratulate African-American athletes, that's debated, but it's certainly a possibility. Now, here's Owens winning the 100 meters. In second place was another USA African-American, Ralph Metcalf, who had also won the silver medal in 1932. But that wasn't the end of the day for Jesse Owens or the end of the Olympics. He then won the 200 meters. And if you notice, the silver medal went to Mac Robinson, Jackie Robinson's older brother. This gentleman from Holland is a pretty good runner too. He finished third in the 100 and the 200. In addition to the 200 meter, then Jesse Owens also won the long jump. But the long jump was a much more exciting event because the Germans had a great long jumper named Lutz Long. And the two of them battled. It was a duel all afternoon. Both of them broke the Olympic world record, or broke the Olympic record for the long jump. And they traded the lead back and forth. Finally, Owens took the gold medal. And here he is on the victory stand. And Lutz Long giving his Nazi salute. But in the meantime, these two competitors really exemplified the Coubertin's idea of sportsmanship because they became very close friends. As soon as Owens won the long jump, Lutz Long came across, gave him a greeting. The two men walked arm in arm around the track in front of the crowd. If they'd have done this on the streets of Berlin, they'd have probably been arrested. But they became close friends after and maintained that friendship after the Olympics. Unfortunately, Lutz Long was killed fighting in World War II. But even after his death, Owens stayed close to the family after the Olympic Games. Now, in addition to that third gold medal in the long jump, Owens won a fourth gold medal in the 400-meter relay, 4x100 relay. And that was a little more controversial because originally he wasn't scheduled to be in that on that relay. The original American relay team consisted of Foy Draper, Frank Wyckoff, Marty Glickman, and Sam Stoller. Glickman and Stoller were the only two American Jewish athletes on the track and field team. They had practiced for weeks. They had, their time showed that they would probably win the gold medal. They were favored to win, but at the last minute, they were replaced by Jesse Owens and Ralph Metcalf. Well, certainly these are the two fastest men in the world. You could justify it from that standpoint, but a lot of people particularly Marty Glickman, felt that this was an anti-Semitic action. And Glickman became a very popular and famous sports commentator throughout his career. And he was always angry about this. And of course, a lot of people agreed with Glickman on that issue. So that was really too bad. Now, when you mention the 36 Olympics, everybody knows about Jesse Owens. That's what comes to mind first, fastest male runner. But not too many people know that we also, America, also provided the fastest woman on the earth at that time too. An 18-year-old Missouri farm girl. This is a storybook kind of dream, but Helen Stevens upset the favored Stella Walsh and Kathy Kraus. She won gold medal in the women's 100 meters. She also anchored the 4x100 relay team, so she won her second gold medal as well. In 1936, women were only allowed to enter 3 events, so she didn't have a chance to tie Jesse Owens with his 4 gold medals. In addition to that, Helen Stevens' other 2 best events were the discus and the long jump. She probably could have won that, but they weren't offered for the women in 1936. So Helen Stevens is quite an interesting story. Now, the most celebrated event of the 36 Olympics was the marathon. And it began in the stadium, then journeyed throughout the city of Berlin. Millions of people were seeing the marathon runners as they went through Berlin. And then the first one back into the stadium was running under the flag of Japan. KT Sun came in first. Here he is crossing the finish line. On the victory stand, we have KT Sun. We have the silver medalist, Ernest Harper from England. And the third place competitor, the bronze medalist, Shoryu Nan, also ran under the flag of Japan. But look at these 2 gentlemen. They are bowing their heads in shame as the Japanese anthem is being played, because they are nationalist Koreans. They were forced to run under the flag of Japan, which at the time happened to be occupying their country. And to make this political demonstration cost them dearly. They were banished from future competition. Now, KT Sun in 1988 did have some sense of revenge because in 1988, the host of the Olympic Games was the Koreans in Seoul, Korea. And at age 73, he ran into the stadium carrying the Olympic torch to, of course, the cheers of his homeland. Now, another, probably the most gossipy story that I have for you of the 36 Olympics has to do with the world record holder in the women's backstroke. Eleanor Holm Jarrett won gold medal in 1932. She had aspirations, however, of becoming a Hollywood star. In fact, in 1938, she did star in the infamous movie Tarzan's Revenge. And the man that played Tarzan was the 1936 decathlon winner. But I think that was the highlight of her movie career. But anyway, she was on the ship going over to Hamburg, bringing all the athletes over for the German Olympics. And it was a most festive group on the ship. And a self-proclaimed party girl, Eleanor Holm Jarrett, by then was now married as well. And she was not real cooperative with the very strict Olympic chaperones who were trying to keep all the Olympic women competitors from the U.S. Under strict rules about when they could go to bed, what they could do. And she got into big trouble, charged with being drunk several times. And Avery Brundage, who was the president of the Olympic Committee, American Olympic Committee, kicked her off the team. They thought that she would be sent back home, but the prettiest girl on the team, wasn't about to do that. She was hired by the Hearst International News, so she was able to stay at the Olympics and do news coverage of the Olympic Games before she came back to the U.S. and her Tarzan movie. Now, another great story in the 36 Olympics is the one about the eight-oared shell. If you see, here's the photo finish, and you can see these are the Americans. It was a college team from the University of Washington that upset the favored Italians and the Germans to win this very prestigious race. And a book titled The Boys in the Boat by Daniel James Brown became a national bestseller. If you haven't read Boys in the Boat, I really recommend it. It's the story of this boy here, Joe Rance, and his teammates, and the amazing story of how these college kids, really former lumberjacks, were trained and not only represented the U.S., but then won the gold medal. Sorry about that. You don't have to be a sports fan to enjoy this book. It's beautifully written. It's just a story of hard work and success. So I would highly recommend Boys in the Boat. There were a number of young competitors in the 36 Olympics. The youngest ever to win a gold medal was 13 years old, an American. Marjorie Gestring won the 3-meter springboard dive. And here she is in action. Here she is on the victory stand. Like most youthful athletes, her parents were very protective. They were there keeping an eye on her. But the Americans did have a grand slam in the springboard diving, all three of them. But here's Marjorie, the youngest. One of the other two, Dorothy Pointon-Hill, was married at this point. So Gestring had to come back home to go back to high school. Now, I couldn't talk about the 36 Olympics without mentioning that this was the first time that the very popular sport, growing in population internationally, of basketball, was the first year that it was considered a medal sport. Invented in 1891 by Dr. James Naismith, the YMCA game. He was the director of the Springfield YMCA, and they needed a sport in between football and baseball, something to do for their men in the winter, and he came up with this idea, which developed into the game of basketball. Now, the American team had little trouble winning the Olympic gold medal. They defeated Canada in the final, 19-8. The interesting thing about the final game, however, is that the basketball games were played outside. They were on clay tennis court complex. And for the finals with Canada, it poured down rain. You can see the umbrellas in the back here, which meant you couldn't dribble the basketball, which meant you couldn't start and stop. The game became a game of slip and slide. But in spite of that, the Americans were victorious, and James Naismith was there to give the oak leaf crowns to the winning American team. Now, the International Olympic Committee does not recognize national combined sport numbers. However, everybody else does. And the point from the media and everybody else is that we look at the team scores. And in the 1936 Olympics, to the shock of everybody, Adolf Hitler's prediction that they would win came true. The numbers don't lie. Germany won the 36 Olympics. They had a total of 89 medals. The United States was second, but if you'll notice, the other democratic allies, France, Great Britain, really didn't do that well. In fact, the third place medal winner was Italy, which, by this time was buddying up with the Germans. And so the successful performance of the German athletes was another result of the 36 Olympic Games. Now, the Germans wanted to have record preserved of the Olympic Games. And so the games were filmed by a cinematographer, very creative, former ballet dancer and movie star. Her name was Leni Riefenstahl, and she was handpicked by Hitler to do the filming of the 1936 Olympics. The reason he picked her was she had already done a film called Triumph of the Will, which was a propaganda film about the 1934 Nuremberg rally. And so she was given the financial support, the personnel support. She had aerial photography. She had cameras that could film underwater. Pits were dug in the ground so they could have ground level photography. Rails were placed alongside of the sprint lanes so that they could follow the sprinters along. And she produced a film that is titled Olympia. It took her 2 years to edit the film, and it wasn't released until 1938. She expected, to get international acclaim and have this film be regarded as the marriage of sport and cinema. However, by 1938, because of Hitler's aggressive moves, most of the world really wasn't interested in her film. When she came to the U.S. to try to market it, she couldn't get anybody to support her and watch the film. Now, the film Olympia and the film Triumph of the Will are both on YouTube. So if you want to see these films, all you have to do is very quickly search, and it's quite interesting, particularly Olympia, because you see the things that I've been talking about here. You can actually see those events happening right on your screen. Okay, let me wrap this thing up, and I think time-wise, I think we're on schedule. These are some lessons that I think are worth considering as we look back at the Berlin Olympics. And I know you can read these things, but I'll try to highlight the lessons as well. Anyway, the Germans really pulled off a caper here. They showed that this group of crazy people could, administer a festival, and they gained respect in spite of their deception, which really kind of is contradictory to the whole purpose of de Coubertin's Olympic gold. It's interesting to, as I pointed out before, looking at the national rankings, you can see the totalitarian nations were doing very well. And certainly the Germans were the winners, and the democratic nations didn't do as well, other than the US, particularly France and Germany, who were soon to be invaded by Germany. So, the Olympic Games were almost a prediction of what was going to happen in the future. Number 3, America's black athletes, especially Jesse Owens, they refuted the National Socialist race theories. Not only were they anti-Semitic, but they were anti a number of other groups as well, particularly blacks. And the athletes got along fine. They, in the Olympic Village, they got along fine. Lutz and Owens' example was strong. It didn't make any difference to the Germans, apparently. It's sad because we see this, and yet the message there was not heeded at all. Fourth thing, yeah, de Coubertin's philosophy is great. I love it, but it's a little naive to think that all we have to do is bring these athletes together, supporting their various nations, and we're going to have kumbaya. It didn't happen, even though the Olympic leaders still treasure this belief. Certainly, the 1936 Olympics was a charade for the National Socialists and what they were going to pull off in the near future. The fifth point, and I feel strongly about this, yeah, the world would be better off, the world of sport would be better off if we focused on the athletes and appreciated their hard work and their performances rather than seeing it as national prestige. The pressure that's on these athletes now to represent their countries means that they really become victims. We've seen, particularly with young gymnastics performers, taken advantage of as well. So maybe, you know, we really need to rethink the idea of the nationalistic competition. And then lastly, the trend that was strengthened by the results of the 36 Olympics to see athletes as national assets like military equipment, technology, and so forth. That's something that was strengthened there and probably not to our benefit. Okay, I've got one other slide here. We're just about ready to, okay. For those of you, if you're interested in reading a little bit further, my two main references were these two books, David Large and Mandel. They're excellent. And then I also supplemented with Metchikoff. And of course, all the slides I was able to get off of the internet. So I was able to put those together. So that's it for me. I'm assuming I'm not speaking to myself here, Steve. So
thank you so much, Alex.
Okay. I guess I should do stop share, huh?
You can stop share, but please stay on the screen. Steve's coming right in. And
okay, well,
questions.
It disappeared, so I'm still here.
You're still there.
Else, is anybody else still here? I see Steve.
Oh, yes.
Hi, we're all here.
You can wake up from your afternoon nap now.
Wait, this is okay. That was great. Appreciate all the insight and
thank you.
Perfect, beautiful presentation. Lovely presentation. Okay, so we do have a few minutes for questions. We have about 10 minutes according to the CMC, so this is plenty of time. Just go over the instructions to ask a question via Zoom, which most people are old. These are old instructions already. So we can do questions in two ways: to raise your hands or to use the chat box feature. To raise your hand, move your mouse to the bottom of the Zoom window and a menu will appear. Tap on the participant button and that will bring up a list of participants. At the bottom of the participant list, you will see a raised hand box. Click on that and you'll see a dialog box asking you to allow us to unmute you. Click yes and your mic will be unmuted so that you can ask a question. Or you can use the chat box feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen and I will read the question out loud. So I'm assuming okay, I don't think that is a question, or maybe it is.
Uh-oh.
No, that's not a question.
Oh, that's not a question.
I have a question. Question. Alex, tell us about what the final ending of the Schmeling-Lewis partnership.
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting story. Jerry was talking about that. Of course, they had a return bout and with a lot of publicity, and Lewis knocked him out in the first round. I mean, it was a wipeout. But later on, apparently, again, you know, a friendship developed between these two men. And when Joe Louis, who's you know, at the end of his life, he was out of money. He had a number of problems, and when he died, he really didn't have enough money to pay for his to cover his burial expenses. And the story is that Max Schmeling is the one that came through and actually paid for the funeral for Joe Louis. So Max Schmeling becomes heroic in that context, certainly to me and many others.
If anyone does have a question and you don't know how to raise your hand or chat, just open your mic and you can ask a question. And here's one from Chris McMasters. Did the athletes get many endorsement deals?
Well, I mean, in 1936, they didn't. I know Jesse Owens was, expecting that. And there were, international kind of meets that were, show meets and things like that he had signed up to participate in. But most of those things fell through. And then, of course, particularly the black athletes, when they returned to the U.S., they weren't treated any differently than they had before the Olympic Games as well. So they still had to deal with the discrimination that and the segregation that was part of our laws, our system at that point. So at that time, no, I'd say not a whole lot. Not like now, anyway. I think there are more opportunities for athletes now.
Any other questions? So I have a question. How cognizant were the athletes of what was going on in Germany? Were they aware of what was happening around in the country as they were competing? Did they know that they, represented something that was against the regime that was and the people that were sort of filling the stadiums and things like that?
But yeah, that's a very complicated question, because I think it really depends on the individuals. Certainly the Jewish athletes, Marty Glickman and Sam Stoller, were aware of it. I think the athletes were aware of the potential boycott, and that movement was fairly strong in the United States and got a lot of publicity. I know the American athletes wanted to go over and refute the idea that the German Aryans were a superior race. I think they were aware of that as well. So I think those things were going on within the context of, again, the friendships that were developed, the example of Lutz Long and Jesse Owens, the issues with women as well. Pierre de Coubertin, who was the father of the Olympics, he knew that the Greeks didn't allow women to not only not participate in the ancient Olympics, they couldn't even come watch the ancient Olympics. In 1912, against de Coubertin's support, women were allowed to compete. And we had swimmers and some gymnasts in Stockholm, Sweden in 1912. So we had a long way to go with that issue, as well. And we saw that the men were treated a lot better than the women in terms of the Olympic Village. So it depends on the person, I think, it depends on the individual.
Any other questions? We got another one. Did any of the famous European athletes manage to get to the US before the war?
Before the war. Well, certainly Helene Meyer came back. Rudy Ball didn't come to the U.S. His family immigrated. I think they eventually ended up in South Africa, where they lived. I'm not aware of specifics. Some of those German athletes were part of the SS, that were competing. And of course, the story with the Korean marathon racers also, they had some real difficulties after the Olympics going back to Japan. And then it took, the end of World War II before they could be allowed to be free enough to participate in sports. So again, I'm not aware of any specific story other than those.
Yeah.
Steve, we have a question from William. We have a
Yep.
question from William, and he's unmuted, so he can ask his question.
Hey, overall, the German team did quite well, overwhelmingly well. Why do you think that's so? Was it organizational? Was it access to facilities, or what? What was going on?
Well, a couple of things were going on. First of all, I don't think they really took the Olympics seriously up until 1936. They didn't have the emphasis. They still couldn't compete with us in track and field, but where they really cleaned up were in swimming events, gymnastics events, weightlifting. There were events in sharpshooting, marksmanship kinds of things. So there were a lot of things. And I'll tell you who else did very well for the Germans, the German women, like Tilly Fleischer and others did very well in the 36 Olympics. So I think just the emphasis and certainly the training and the facility provisions were there. That was the point about the totalitarian countries. In America, it was amateur sports and this kind of thing. And the fact that we have professional athletes now participating in the Olympics, it's a result of the totalitarian countries that were actually, having professional athletes already representing the countries in the Olympic Games. And when America lost to the Russians in the Olympic basketball championships one year, that really opened the door for our American Olympic Committee to say, wait a second, they're using professionals, so are we. So now that door is wide open.
Alex, you said that 120,000 people came into the opening of the games.
I said 110 were there on opening day.
Oh, 110. How many attended we have a question from Chris McMaster. How many people attended the whole Olympics of 1936? Do you know?
You mean like for the 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I mean, the fervor was strong, and I would expect that stadium was sold out every day for 16, consecutive days. And then, of course, the other impact was the media and the fact that 300 million people were able to get the results on the radio as well. So I would say, I haven't seen any data on how many what the numbers were on how many people attended, but I mean, if you take 16 and multiply it times approximately 100,000 every day, that'll give you some idea of the attendance.
Big crowd. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a big. This was a festival. I mean, this was a very successfully run festival by the Nazi regime.
Okay, I just got word that we should wrap up soon. So thank you so much,
Okay.
Alex, for stepping in. It was a great presentation.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. A rebroadcast of this presentation will be available soon on the CMC's YouTube page and our Historical Society website. Go to Discover and then Video. And I just wanted to say a few words about our relationship with the Community Media Center. Since May, we've been partnering, doing the box lunch talks and the talks of the tavern together with them, and they broadcasted it on channel 1086 and channel 19. And this month and this BLT will be the last presentation we do together. So we're on our own starting in December, but it's been a great partnership. The team there, Brandy, Sherry, Josh, and of course, Richard Turner have been fantastic partners through this whole pandemic. As soon as we wanted to start doing these talks virtually, they stepped in there with enthusiasm, interest, and professionalism. And I really admire them and appreciate all the work they've they've done over the past few months working with us. So thank you all very much at the Community Media Center. As you know, we typically charge an entrance fee for our BLTs of $3 for members and $7 for non-members. If you enjoyed today's presentation, please go to our website and click on the donate button on the top right-hand side of on the homepage. And before I go, I'd like to announce a couple of things. On January 19th, a BLT at 12 p.m. will feature Mimi Ashcraft giving a talk on the Carroll County's African-American soldiers and sailors from the Civil War. Join us in exploring the stories of these men, the challenges they faced in the segregated military service, the battles in which they fought, and their families' efforts for pensions after the war ended. And on January 23rd, we'll be hosting a virtual county birthday with speaker Kevin Dayhoff. Since we can't offer cupcakes or a birthday over Zoom, we'll be raffling off treats to our virtual attendees. That should be a great talk by Kevin. And both of the events are available on our website for you to register. So I'm kind of rushing here. I think we only have a minute left. So I hope everyone is staying safe, and best wishes for good health. Have a great Thanksgiving holiday next week. Stay safe, but still enjoy some turkey. Thanks, everyone.